Welcome to the Feeding Activity Introduction. Thank you for taking an interest in one of the activities that the Red Cross uses to support those impacted by a disaster. The purpose of this course is to familiarize Red Cross feeding workers with basic information about Red Cross feeding, the types of feeding we provide, and the tasks that are performed by the mass care feeding activity during a disaster response. Here are the learning objectives for this presentation. You will be able to identify canteening, mobile and fixed feeding site tasks typically performed by a feeding worker, and identify procedures for handling food safely and other feeding tasks. Let's start by defining what Red Cross feeding is. Feeding is when the Red Cross provides food, drinks, and snacks to those affected by and responding to disaster events, ranging from single-family home incidents to larger events such as tornadoes, floods, hurricanes, wildfires, earthquakes, and catastrophic incidents. You should know that you do not need to have food service experience or food preparation skills to work in Red Cross feeding, but you should be prepared for challenging yet fulfilling work. Feeding is necessary in disaster-affected areas for many reasons. The people who need your help may have no electricity to store and prepare food, no drinkable water, no transportation to find food, or even no home at all. Dealing with a disaster situation is stressful, and people need nourishment to keep them going. Feeding is offered to all who need it during a disaster event, whether they are clients, first responders, or others who are assisting in the relief effort, including partners, utility workers, and other relief agencies. Feeding provides more than just nourishment to our clients. It also helps clients cope with the emotional toll of the disaster and enables responders to continue with their disaster response efforts. The meals we provide to clients can come from a number of sources. For large and long disaster relief operations, the Red Cross often relies on partner organizations like Southern Baptist Disaster Relief and the Salvation Army to prepare many of the hot meals that it distributes. These organizations have the capacity to cook large quantities of food and ready it for distribution. The Red Cross purchases food from large vendors like Sysco and U.S. Foods, but also uses grocery and bulk purchase stores like Costco and Sam's Club. Food banks and USDA foods are other sources. The Red Cross may also use prepared meals from local vendors and caterers. Many times, the meals will be delivered to the Red Cross in bulk containers, and you will have to organize the meals for serving. In rare instances, Red Cross responders will prepare the meals it needs using Red Cross mobile kitchens or commercial kitchen sites. In some cases, meals are prepared in the shelter by the Red Cross with the assistance of the facility's food service staff. I mentioned earlier that we can deliver food to the community. One of the ways we do that is by using an emergency response vehicle, also known as an ERV. An ERV is a Red Cross vehicle designed to distribute food and drinks. Sometimes it can serve as a portable work area. An ERV also shows a Red Cross presence in a community. If ERVs are not available, we rent vehicles or use other Red Cross vehicles. Here is a look into the back of an ERV and some of the features and equipment you'll find in an ERV. Shelves and cabinets for storage. Cargo hooks for securing cambros, which are the large red storage containers you see here. Back doors for loading and unloading. A service window for distributing food and drinks. And some have a plexiglass writing surface by the serving window for communicating messages. There are some newer ERVs that are referred to as next-generation ERVs. Other than some configuration differences with the style of the vehicle, next-generation ERVs serve the same purpose of the older generation ERVs. Now let's look at the various accessories you'll use to perform feeding tasks. This isn't a complete list, but it will help you get a better understanding of what is involved with the food service delivery. A banquet pack is an individually wrapped packet of eating utensils, a napkin, and sometimes condiments. Having the items packaged together keeps them sanitary and ensures that everyone gets the same utensils. A cambro is the brand name of a specialized food storage container we use. It stores hot food or cold food and can be labeled with temperature, time, and a description of what is inside of it. A Cambro can weigh more than 40 pounds when full and requires 2 people to lift it. Cambros must be secured while traveling and cleaned thoroughly after each use. Bungee cords are used for securing equipment safely. We can also use cargo straps or netting for this purpose. These items should be in every ERV. Gloves are an important element for food safety and must be worn when handling and distributing food. A hat or hairnet must also be worn when handling and serving food. Thermometers are used to be sure that food remains in a safe temperature range. A clamshell is a food container used for individual food service. It usually holds an entree and 2 side dishes. Sometimes containers are pre-filled and given to clients. When possible, containers are filled to order and given to clients. Serving utensils, like ladles, spoodles, and tongs, are used to serve food and maintain portion control. And finally, markers are used for recording food temperatures and times on Cambro labels. Again, you will find additional feeding accessories on the ERV or at a Red Cross feeding site. Next, let's look at the methods that the Red Cross uses for feeding. Now that you have learned where the food we use generally comes from and some of the items we use, let's look at the 3 methods of food distribution. Canteening is used to serve first responders assisting with disaster response efforts, shelter residents, and others who need hydration and food. Mobile feeding uses ERVs and other vehicles to distribute prepared food to clients in their neighborhoods. And fixed feeding takes place at designated locations in and near the disaster-affected area. Next, we'll look at each method more closely. Canteening is distribution of drinks and snacks to shelter clients and/or responders engaged in a disaster response. Sometimes light meals, such as fast food, are also provided. As an example, canteening could serve responders fighting a wildfire who must take frequent breaks to get relief from the smoke and heat. Canteening at a response location is often accomplished using an ERV or other vehicle. Canteening can also be putting out snacks and drinks on a table at a location where workers or clients may congregate, like a shelter or at an operations headquarters. Canteening could last for less than an hour or take place over many days. Here are some of the basic tasks you may be asked to perform when assigned to canteening. Make coffee. Load and unload snacks, drinks, ice, and other needed items on the vehicles. Pick up coffee and/or meals from vendors like fast food restaurants or caterers. Serve items to emergency workers and clients. Maintain an inventory of food, snacks, supplies, and equipment. Interact with emergency workers or clients. Clean and sanitize feeding equipment and return it to the vehicle for future use. And complete and submit required reports. Canteening is fairly easy to do, and it puts you in direct contact with the people you will be serving. Now let's take a look at mobile feeding. When people are able to stay in their homes but have lost electricity, or if there is cleanup taking place immediately after the disaster, they appreciate that the Red Cross can distribute prepared meals and drinks directly to them in their neighborhood. Your help allows them to concentrate on their recovery. Mobile feeding is typically performed using an ERV to distribute prepared food to clients and sometimes to other responders working in the disaster-affected areas. If you are assigned to perform mobile feeding, you will likely travel along designated routes that have been planned by a supervisor. Mobile feeding is usually performed twice daily by teams of 2 or more Red Cross workers. Here are some of the tasks you may be asked to perform when assigned to mobile feeding. You may load an ERV or vehicle with food, drinks, and other supplies, and drive an assigned route to deliver meals, snacks, and drinks. Once at the serving location, you may assemble the meals in the clamshells and serve them to the clients from the ERV. Your supervisor will give you instructions on the serving sizes for the meals you will serve. It is very important to follow the correct serving sizes. If you are unsure of the right serving sizes, ask your supervisor. Giving the wrong serving size can result in running out of food or create food waste. In addition, it is important that all clients receive equal meals that follow the intended menu for the meal. You may have to take food and drinks to those who cannot come out to the ERV. This could include delivering meals in high-rise or other apartment-style buildings. You will always want to talk to people at the stops to collect information, for example, assessing the power situation and identifying others needing our help. You will report this information back to your supervisor to be used for planning. In addition, you will notify clients when the mobile feeding will be discontinued in their area and advise them where they can go for ongoing help. Report meal, snack, and drink counts with any suggested changes. Take inventory of items and adjust inventory numbers for the next route. Refuel the ERV and perform maintenance checks as needed. And return, clean, and sanitize equipment that was used, including the Cambros and the ERV. Red Cross workers say that performing mobile feeding is one of the most rewarding jobs they have ever done. Many also say it is the most tiring. It sometimes requires long hours and a lot of time on the road. Now let's take a look at the third feeding method, fixed feeding. Fixed feeding takes place at sites where clients and emergency workers can congregate in a location that is set up to serve meals. Some examples of fixed locations include parking lots or tents, faith-based sites, and public buildings such as schools. Food for a fixed feeding site is either brought to the location or could be prepared there. If you are assigned to support a fixed feeding site, you may be working more directly with partners and other Red Cross responders. Here are some of the basic tasks you may be asked to perform when assigned to fixed feeding. Set up serving tables for meals in a designated area. You may also have to set up tables and chairs for the clients. Put out drinks and snacks and ensure that both are restocked as needed. Assist with the placement of the food containers and trays and the serving of the meals. Ensure that all feeding areas are kept clean and sanitary, and that safe food handling procedures are followed at all times. Wash utensils and containers, clean tables and manage garbage. And record and report meal counts. Now that we discussed the 3 methods of Red Cross feeding, let's look at some additional items you will need to know. If you remember, during mobile feeding, the meals usually come from a large kitchen or caterers and are delivered by the Red Cross. With fixed feeding, the meals still may come from a large kitchen or caterer, but the serving of the meals for fixed sites may be handled differently. The Red Cross doesn't always do the serving of those meals directly to clients. Sometimes the Red Cross will supply prepared meals to partners who will distribute them in their own sites. In some cases, the Red Cross may provide bulk food, grocery-like items to partners who will prepare and serve the meals in their own locations. And in some cases, Red Cross responders may assist the partners with the meal distribution. The Red Cross works with the community to determine what the feeding needs will be and plans accordingly to meet those needs. There is more to feeding than just providing the meals, drinks, and snacks. Part of the assistance feeding responders provide to clients is to show compassion for the people who have endured disaster. You might be wondering what you would say to someone who has lost everything. Here are some tips for talking with clients. The best advice is to say less and listen more. You can always ask, "How are you doing?" Ask clients if they have registered with the Red Cross for assistance and provide them with a phone number they can call. Clients usually have a need to talk about their experiences and are seeking additional information and assistance. Feeding workers are on the front lines with those clients. As a Red Cross feeding responder, you must have a basic knowledge of safe food handling procedures. Safe food handling is extremely important. In the next few slides, we'll cover some important information about food safety. Touching food or equipment in an unsafe manner could spread contamination to those you are trying to help. Always wear gloves and head covering when preparing, assembling, or serving food. Change your gloves often to avoid cross-contamination. Do not touch your hair, face, or clothing while wearing gloves. Keep hand sanitizer and cleaning supplies handy. Wash your hands often. The Red Cross offers a basic food safety course. It is available through the Red Cross Disaster Training Index. Safe food temperatures are extremely important. Bacteria in food doubles in quantity when it gets into the temperature danger zone, which is between 40 and 140 degrees. Food temperatures need to be checked often, especially when food containers are opened regularly or kept open. Document the time and temperature when it is taken on the label or a tablet. How do we know if food is at a safe temperature to serve? At the Red Cross, we use the Rule of 4. Here's a quick video to explain what this means.
We have a saying at the Red Cross called the Rule of 4. Between 40 degrees and 140 degrees for 4 hours or forget it. Here's an illustration of this important concept. Cold foods such as salads, milk, cheese, and cold cuts are okay to serve when their temperatures do not rise above 40 degrees Fahrenheit. When it does, start the clock. You have 4 hours to serve it. After that time, throw it away. Hot foods such as entrees and hot vegetables are okay to serve when their temperatures do not go below 140 degrees Fahrenheit. When it does, start the clock. You have 4 hours to serve it. After that time, throw it away. Keep in mind, food in a properly tempered and sealed Cambro will stay at the same temperature for many hours. When Cambros are opened often, temperatures change quickly. You should record food temperatures frequently using a food thermometer.
How do you apply the Rule of 4? Let's walk through a sample scenario. Suppose you are serving meals at a fixed feeding site. It is 5:15 p.m. and a group of people are expected to arrive at 6 p.m. for a meal. You are serving hot food from a Cambro that has the label shown here. You check the food temperature at 5:30 p.m. It's at 130 degrees. Can you serve this food? Yes, you may serve the hot food since it is within 4 hours of the time it dropped below 140 degrees. Always keep these safe food handling principles in mind when you are feeding. Remember the Rule of 4. Always wear disposable food handling gloves when assembling meals and dispensing food. Wash your hands often and keep them clean at all times. Keep your hair pulled back and covered with a cap or hairnet. Remove rings, watches, bracelets, and nail polish. If you are taking medicine, keep it away from the food. Let your supervisor know immediately if you have a cut or infection, or if you are not feeling well. Remember that the Red Cross offers a basic food safety course available through the Red Cross Disaster Training Index. I mentioned earlier that the Red Cross serves meals out of Cambros. Now let's cover the basic steps for serving meals from a Cambro. Here is how you will do it. Unlatch the Cambro lid and open only the service flap. Carefully unfold the Cambro liner bag that was placed inside the Cambro. Use serving utensils to place one serving of each menu item into clamshells, which typically contain a hot entree and 2 sides, such as a serving of fruit, vegetable, or dessert. Hand a filled clamshell with a plastic utensil pack, snack, and/or drink to each client. When feeding is completed, refold the Cambro liner and secure the Cambro lid. For more information on using a Cambro, you can refer to the Cambro Procedures Job Aid in the Feeding Toolkit on the Exchange. Along with serving food safely, constant inventory checks are an important part of the feeding activity. You may be asked to help a supervisor manage and control inventory. Here are a few things you need to know. You will need to count and record items before and after distribution. Your supervisor will give you instructions on how to count the items used based on the packaging. Your supervisor will also give you instructions on what form to use for recording inventory. Here are some tips for keeping inventory. Keep a good inventory to ensure you have adequate food and supplies to complete your run. It is important to submit inventory reports in a timely manner so that orders can be filled quickly. When distributing food, manage your inventory based on supply and client need. Sometimes food must be disposed of because it is not needed or no longer safe to serve. This food should also be accounted for, and the Red Cross has a system for tracking that. We've covered a lot of information about where you might expect to work, the tasks you may perform, and how to safely handle food. Here's a brief summary of key points. Your role as a compassionate helper is as important as your role in providing food. Feeding can be a strenuous activity, but you will find it rewarding. You need to be flexible. You may be assigned to help with any of the tasks associated with feeding. Notify your supervisor if you are unable to distribute food safely or have any questions. Safe food handling must be a priority. For more information about the feeding activity, please visit the Feeding Toolkit on the Exchange. You should now have a better idea of how the Red Cross provides feeding and what to expect as a feeding worker. Contact the disaster team at your chapter or region to find out more about becoming involved in the feeding activity.